Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the early morning world of the song Dynasty, where cleanliness isn't just next to godliness, it's sandwiched directly between etiquette and Confucian virtue. You are not a warrior. You are not a poet. You are something much nobler, far more feared by dust. A librarian, and not just any librarian, but one charged with the care of scrolls, commentaries, and calligraphy collections that scholars argue over by candlelight. Your hands must be steady. Your inkstone must be spotless. And yes, your fingernails should absolutely not be long enough to knock over a jade brush rest. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where my sleepy scribes are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You rise just before the courtyard rooster completes his second crow, not because you're an overachiever, but because sleeping too long means the bathhouse line triples, and the stream water gets cloudy. You swing your legs over the bamboo mat, feet landing on cool tile, and immediately regret not placing your slippers closer last night. You shuffle to the corner of your scholar's quarters, where a bamboo bucket sits, half full with yesterday's well water. It's cold, still, dark as ink. You crouch, cup your hands, and splash it onto your face. It's not refreshing. It's more like punishment, like the water is trying to remind you. Don't forget your duties, or your nose spoon. You gasp softly, then catch yourself. Loud noises this early are unbecoming of someone in charge of the poetry scrolls. You splash again. There's no soap involved, just brisk rubbing with a hemp cloth, and the faint herbal scent left over from yesterday's foot soak. You scrub behind your ears, under your chin, across the back of your neck. You wonder briefly if Emperor Rinzong himself ever had to start his day with cold water and an itchy cloth. Probably not. Historians still argue whether most Song Dynasty commoners wash daily. The records imply a deep cultural appreciation for hygiene. But whether it was daily practice or aspirational Confucian ideal varies by region and class. As a librarian, you exist in a strange middle zone. Not wealthy, but respected. Not noble, but groomed. Like you might be examined at any moment for dust particles. You dry your face with a linen scrap that's been sun-dried stiff and folded into a perfect square. It smells faintly of plum blossoms, or possibly the open windows curtain. Now awake, technically. You move to the washstand, where a polished bronze mirror rests. The face staring back at you is squinty, wild-haired, and sporting the beginnings of what could become either a philosophical beard or a very unfortunate rash. You'll deal with both later. Beside the mirror is your set of morning discipline tools: a comb, a shallow bowl of water, and a sliver of dried plum bark, wrapped in reed paper. You're not supposed to snack on it. Again, you set the mirror upright and lean in. On the shelf behind you, a scroll titled The Virtue of Stillness leans at an accusatory angle, as though judging your bed hair. You make a note to dust it later, as the courtyard slowly fills with the sounds of neighbors stirring, doors sliding, slippers shuffling, someone already boiling rice. You wrap your robe tighter and move your bucket aside. It will be refilled later, after the sun has warmed the stone path enough to dry your feet quickly. Outside, mist curls around the tiled eaves, like sleepy dragons, refusing to rise. You step onto the porch, just long enough to stretch up, arms reaching toward a sky not yet fully blue. Your joints crack. Politely, the wind is cool, but not sharp. The trees are still dripping from last night's rain. A sparrow chitters on the roof. You don't speak to it. That would be weird. But you do. Nod respectfully. Today, like every day, your scrolls depend on your precision, on your clarity, on your absolute unwillingness to let oil from your nose ruin another page of collected commentaries on Mountain Landscapes Volume 3. You duck back inside. Eyes clearer now. Heartbeat calmer. Your robe still smells like barley porridge and tea from yesterday. You'll fix that in Section 3. But first, Time to do something. About your teeth. You return to your washstand, where your next ritual awaits. Oral Hygiene, Song Dynasty Edition. No mint-flavored toothpaste. No electric toothbrush that judges you silently. No disposable floss. Just you. A bowl of water. A pouch of tooth powder that smells suspiciously like burnt pine cones. And a feather. That's it. Welcome to dental care. 1043 style. You unwrap the pouch carefully, revealing a fine, pale powder, made from powdered deer horn, pine ash, and a generous helping of salt. It's gritty, a little smoky, and smells like someone burned incense in a barbecue pit. Still, it works. You dip a slender, frayed bamboo brush, more stick than bristle, into the powder, tap it against the bowl's rim, and start gently scrubbing your teeth. The texture is aggressive. It feels like exfoliating your molars with sandpaper, but you tell yourself, it builds character, or at least, fortitude. After a few moments of careful scouring, you pause to spit into a cloth. You do not spit onto the floor. Even now, with no one watching, decorum insists. You pretend the emperor himself might inspect your spittoon. Then comes the feather. Not a glamorous quill, just a plain goose feather, stripped to a firm, narrow point. You've whittled the end for precision. It's your makeshift toothpick. You slide it gently between your molars, wiggling slightly, trying not to sneeze or accidentally stab your gums. Historians still argue whether feather toothpicks were widely used or just a niche scholarly habit, like drinking tea while composing regret poems. Some suggest silver picks were more common for the upper class, but for someone like you, a middle-ranked librarian with a fear of dental pain and a goose that molts conveniently, this works just fine. You find something stuck near your back molar, possibly yesterday's mung bean cake, possibly older. You remove it without ceremony and wipe the feather clean. Your breath smells acceptable, not fresh exactly, but no longer offensive, like a pine tree that's trying its best. You rinse your mouth with tepid water from the bronze bowl, sloshing gently, then lean over and spit again, gracefully, into a small ceramic jar, meant exactly for that purpose. No barbarism here. You're a man of letters. A breeze nudges your curtain. Outside, the sound of a broom, swishing across stone, reaches your ears. Someone is already sweeping the courtyard. You take a moment to be thankful. It isn't you. To your left, an old scroll titled Proper Appearances for Scholars sits half unrolled, as if watching. You give it a curt nod. Next, you dry your hands and face again, even though they weren't particularly wet. It's not about necessity. It's about form, about routine, about not being the kind of librarian who accidentally gets roasted in a student's poem for having breath of fish and fingers of ink. You open your small grooming kit. Comb, tiny mirror, bone tweezers, and an embroidered cloth, folded with the precision of a monk's prayer robe. You glance at the mirror again. Your teeth glisten slightly. Not bad. If the emperor's nephew walked in right now and asked you to read aloud from the treatise on proper river flow, you could do so without fearing the recoil of his nose. As you begin packing away the tooth powder pouch, you notice a few grains have spilled onto the edge of your desk. You wipe them with the corner of your sleeve, lightly, carefully, then dust off your robe in a motion you've perfected. Swift, minimal, philosophical. This entire process has taken perhaps 15 minutes, maybe less, but it feels grounding, like pressing your first ink stroke on clean paper or watching a candle flicker. Just before dawn, you sit for a moment on the floor beside your bed mat, legs crossed. There's still much to do before you're fit to be seen in the archival chamber. And the ink master, he who once publicly scolded you for dripping sweat onto a Song-era travel permit, will absolutely notice if you arrive with a crusty molar or visible plaque. He's got vision like a hawk and manners like a gate hinge. You glance at your hand. There's still a faint smudge of soot beneath one fingernail from last night's lamp cleaning. You'll get to that. But first, the hair. Your hair at present looks like a startled porcupine. A smart one, sure, but still. You rise, set your cleaning kit aside, and move toward your shelf of grooming oils and combs, already dreading the top-knot process. There's a reason. Confucius never said, "A man with frizzy temple hair shall ascend in virtue," because he would have had to look in the mirror first. Outside, the sparrow is back, chirping exactly 3 times, then pausing, as if keeping time. So are you. You sit back down, at your grooming mat, exhaling slowly, as if to prepare your scalp for diplomacy. Your hair is, at this hour, ambitious. Strands point in every direction, as if they, too, have opinions on song poetry. You reach for your horn comb, smooth, curved, and slightly warm. From the morning air, it is not ornamental. It is a weapon against knots. The first few strokes are always the worst. You start at the ends, coaxing out small tangles, before daring to pull closer to your scalp. Your hair is long by today's standards, but modest for a Song Dynasty scholar. Long enough to tie, short enough not to trip over. While fetching scrolls, you add a few drops of sesame oil to your palm and rub it gently between your hands. The scent is nutty, comforting. You smooth it through your hair slowly, taming the frizz, coaxing the strands into agreement. Historians still argue whether hair oil in this era was more about grooming or spiritual discipline. Some texts emphasize purity of appearance as reflective of moral state. Others mention sesame oil primarily as protection against lice and dry scalp. You suspect it's a little of both. Also, your scalp is extremely itchy without it. Once the oil is evenly spread, you switch to your lacquered brush. This one is wide, with stiff bristles, perfect for coaxing your mane into a vaguely civilized shape. You brush downward, in long, even strokes, breathing in slowly as you go. The rhythm becomes meditative. Down, breathe, down, exhale. With each pass, the hair settles, softer now, obedient, almost smug. You reach for the silk ribbon, narrow, deep indigo, embroidered with a single plum blossom near one end. It's not decorative. It's your top-knot band. Every librarian has one, and yours is sturdy, just like your conviction that scrolls should never be shelved. Alphabetically, by title, you gather your hair, pull it back, and twist it tightly near the crown of your head. The motion is familiar. Muscle memory. 1,000 mornings practiced. Twist, coil, secure. You wrap the ribbon. Once, twice. Then knot it carefully. Beneath the bun, a tug to test. It holds. The resulting knot sits neatly, balanced, neither ostentatious nor droopy. A librarian's knot, quietly superior. You reach again for your bronze mirror and tilt your head to inspect your work. Not bad, not perfect. One small strand at the temple has declared independence, but nothing shameful. You could appear before a prefect like this, or worse, a poetry club, to tidy up the final loose hairs. You dip your finger in plum kernel oil and smooth them down. A light press with the comb's handle finishes the job. You resist the urge to wink at your reflection. That would be undignified. You retrieve a small sachet from your drawer, a cotton pouch filled with dried osmanthus petals and a hint of crushed clove. You tuck it beneath your inner robe collar. Its fragrance will subtly mask the vinegar scent of the library walls and the mustiness of scrolls that haven't been read since the last lunar eclipse. You return your tools to their place, one by one. Comb, brush, oil dish, cloth, ribbon case. Order is everything. Your grooming kit looks like a miniature apothecary. Neat rows, delicate jars, purposeful arrangement. It reflects your inner state, or at least pretends to. The sun is climbing now. Light pools across the floor, touching the edges of your bedding. In the courtyard, someone is playing a bamboo flute, very slowly, either as morning practice or revenge. You sit again, momentarily still, and stretch your neck. It cracks softly. You imagine the sound traveling across the walls, like a scroll, unrolling, on the shelf above you. The scroll titled The 9 Fragrances of Self-Cultivation catches the sunlight on its lacquered edge. You've never read it, but you like knowing it's there. Your sleeves, now crisp and flattened, brush softly against your thighs. You're almost ready to begin dressing. But there's one more task before cloth can touch your skin. The robe itself must be washed It's a light linen robe today. Ivory. With a pale blue collar. It smells like yesterday's sweat. Anxiety. And possibly the pickled cabbage you spilled last night. While reading under the lamp, you lift it gently and inspect the fabric for ink stains. There's one. Just below the waist. Shaped like a question mark. Fitting. You'll need the stream. For this, you fold the robe over your arm. Gather your washing stone and beans and tie your sash loosely. Outside, the path to the water glows like a page, waiting to be filled. Your hair, your teeth, your breath, your skin. They're all in balance. Now, it's time to conquer linen. You step outside, with the robe folded neatly over your arm. Your sandals soft, against the packed clay of the courtyard path. The morning air is light now. Cool, but no longer sharp, and carries with it the scent of wood smoke, crushed grass, and someone steaming dumplings. 3 houses away, a cruel reminder that you've eaten nothing except vinegar breath and pride. So far today, you turn right, pass beneath the lattice gate, and walk the narrow stone path toward the washing stream. The stream is modest, no dramatic cascades, no poetic fog curling above the water. Just a shallow ribbon of movement, threading behind the scriptorium wall. It babbles softly, over smooth stones, like it's whispering a forgotten Tang Dynasty joke. You crouch at your usual washing spot, a flat slab of rock, worn smooth from years of devoted laundering. You set your robe down and unpack your washing kit. A pouch of soap beans, a handful of scrub grass, and a small stone, polished to a crescent edge. Your cleaning blade. You unwrap each item with care, like a surgeon preparing for surgery. Except the patient here is linen. With a grudge. First, you rinse the robe gently, dipping it in the water until the cloth darkens and clings to itself like a shy guest. Then, you take the soap beans, round, dried, and blessedly fragrant, and crush a few between your palms. They lather slightly, a soft froth, rising like clouds, pressed between fingers. No perfume, just clean. You rub the paste into the sleeves first. Always the sleeves. They're the dirtiest part. Forever dragging through ink, steam, and poor life decisions. You massage the cloth with the scrub grass in small circles, humming under your breath. Historians still debate whether soap beans were commonly used by scholars or primarily reserved for wealthier citizens. Some sources suggest scribes used plain water and prayer. You, thankfully, have soap beans and an extremely low tolerance for sleeve shame. You move to the hem next, where the ink stain, shaped like a question mark, waits patiently for its reckoning. You apply a bit more pressure, working the soap into the fibers. With the edge of your cleaning stone, the fabric protests slightly, but begins to lighten. A frog croaks somewhere nearby, possibly offering commentary. You rinse the robe again, lifting it carefully to let the water rush through. You hold it up, inspect it in the sunlight. The ink stain is fainter now, no longer a question mark, more like a comma. Progress. Your sandals squish slightly as you adjust your footing. You wonder if someone is watching from the kitchen window. Last time, a boy from the apothecary shouted, "Scholar doing laundry," as if this were some rare lunar event. You hope he's asleep today. You wring the robe carefully, not twisting it, just pressing it between your hands and letting the water stream back into the current. A breeze picks up, rustling the reeds along the far bank. A fish leaps. Too small for dinner, too bold for comfort. Now comes the trickiest part. Keeping the robe clean, long enough to dry it. You carry it, dripping but brighter, back toward the house, both arms raised, like a ceremonial offering. A chicken eyes you suspiciously as you pass. You maintain eye contact. Not today, bird. You reach the courtyard and find your heated bricks, already laid out, near the kitchen wall. Still warm from the rising sun. You spread the robe over them, smoothing out the folds with the side of your hand. The steam rises immediately, faint and fragrant, a combination of sesame oil, soap beans, and triumph. You sit beside it, cross-legged, and wait. The robe dries slowly, shrinking slightly. As it releases the last of its dampness, you resist the urge to poke it. There is no honor in poking. While you wait, you pick up your hem towel and begin wiping down your sandals. Dust has crept into the stitching again. You scrub gently, then shake them out. One tiny pebble falls out. Like a defeated general, you glance at your sleeves. Damp now. You tug them higher and let the sun find your forearms. The heat is pleasant, earthy, grounding. You look up and watch the clouds drift lazily past the temple rooftop. You wonder, briefly, how many librarians have sat here like this, robes steaming gently, scrolls forgotten for a while. Probably too many to count. Probably all of them. The robe is nearly dry now. You test it with your fingers. Still a little cool, but no longer wet. You lift it carefully, give it one final shake, and fold it in half, then in quarters. Neat, square, precise. You carry it back inside, proud and slightly sun-warmed, ready for the next phase. Your feet, because while your robe is fresh, and your hair looks like it read Confucius for breakfast, your feet are currently dustier than the fourth shelf of the archive chamber. And if you're going to start the day clean, you're going to do it all the way down to the toes. You step carefully across the cool tile floor of your scholar's quarters, robe draped over one arm, sandals in the other. The air inside is still and hushed, as if even the dust has agreed to pause. You set your robe gently on the wooden bench by the wall, fresh, warm, and free of both ink stains and public shame. Now, your feet. You sit cross-legged on the woven mat and place your sandals beside you, toe tips pointed like two straw triangles of intention. Then, you reach for the small cedarwood box tucked beneath your bench, the one labeled in faint calligraphy, "Foot Matters." Inside, crushed sandalwood powder, a soft cloth, 2 fingers of dried ginger root, and your bronze nail blade. You set everything out like ceremonial instruments, because for a Song Dynasty librarian, hygiene is virtue, and virtue begins between the toes. You examine your feet. They've walked across scroll chambers, stream courtyards, temple stairs, and last week's unfortunate spillage of fermented turnip soup. Today, they look like they might have opinions. You give them a nod of respect and begin. First, the rinse. You retrieve your water bowl, still half full, from your earlier face wash, and gently splash your feet. The water is cold again, but this time, your skin is ready. You lift one foot into your lap and begin scrubbing with the cloth, gently in circles, across the soles, over the tops, in between each toe. With diplomatic precision, a small puff of courtyard dust escapes. You squint at it, like an investigator, probably yesterday's. Once rinsed, you dry your feet with a strip of cotton rag. It's the good kind, softened by years of service, fraying only slightly at the edges. The kind of cloth that doesn't judge. Now comes the sandalwood powder. You pinch a bit between your fingers and press it into your skin, dabbing it between toes, across your heels, even the curve of your arch. The scent rises immediately. Earthy, sweet, faintly spicy. Your feet now smell like a philosopher's incense tray. Historians still argue whether powdered foot scenting was widespread or limited to temple goers and high officials. Some claim it was purely ritual. Others cite passages from domestic handbooks, urging readers to prepare the feet before receiving guests or books. You like that? Books, not just people. Next is the sandal check. You pick up your straw slippers and turn them over like suspicious letters. No scorpions, no beetles, no surprises. You inspect the weaving, still intact, though one reed strand has curled upward in defiance. You smooth it down with your thumb. Cooperation is restored. Sliding your feet in is a moment of quiet victory. The powder cushions your soles. The weave presses lightly against your skin. Snug, but not tight. ready for walking, standing, shelving, ready to be seen. Now you sit straighter, more alert, less grimy. The robe waits, folded and fresh. But first, one final foot ritual. The ginger rub. You take a small piece of dried ginger root, rub it briskly between your palms to warm it, and then glide it over your soles in slow, arching strokes. The heat builds gradually, not fire, but a pulse. Like memory, waking up in your skin. This part isn't necessary, but it feels right. Ginger stimulates circulation, encourages balance, and possibly, according to one monk's diary, wards off foot spirits. You're not sure what those are, but you're not interested in finding out. You finish the rub. Inhale the faint bite of ginger in the air, and set the root aside. You dust off your hands, and stretch both feet out before you, admiring your work. Clean, dry, fragrant, honorable. You take a moment to rock gently forward and back. On the mat, your knees creak, like bamboo in the wind. Your spine feels longer now, your thoughts less fogged. Something about a clean foot gives you clarity. You rise slowly, gathering your robe. You unfold it layer by layer. The fabric soft and obedient. From its morning wash, you step into it with care, guiding each sleeve like an invitation. The cloth brushes your legs like a polite whisper. You tie the sash twice, folding it flat, making sure the knot sits just off center, neither too precise nor too careless, just enough to say, I read poetry before breakfast. Your sleeves hang properly now. Your hair is tied. Your feet are fragrant, and your sandals do not contain insects. All is well. The room is brighter. The sun has climbed the outer wall, and now sends ribbons of light dancing through the lattice. Outside, someone is watering their bean trellis, humming a tune that's 2 notes short of musical. A dog barks once, then regrets it. You turn toward your writing desk and eye the brush stand. Dusty, slightly crooked, inkstone, still crusted from yesterday's edits. You sigh gently. The scrolls can wait. Your brushes, however, are scandalously unwashed, and if you don't clean them before noon, you'll end up with streaks, blotches, and worst of all, editorial smears. But that's next. First, you retrieve your nose spoon. You cross the room with the solemnity of a man about to wield a nose spoon. Your robe flows gently around your ankles. The sandalwood powder still clings to your feet like faint perfume. Outside, the flute player has finally stopped, or been paid to stop. Either way, the quiet returns. On your low shelf near the mirror, your grooming kit awaits. Today's focus: ears, nose, and eyebrows. A trifecta of dignity. You sit on the mat again, cross-legged with precision, and unfold your linen tool wrap. Inside, a bone-handled nose spoon, a copper ear pick, shaped like a tiny ladle, and a pair of finely carved tweezers that once belonged to your uncle. You know this because he engraved his name badly. On the handle, it says, property of Lynn, followed by a symbol that might be a pig or a cloud. You begin with your ears, lifting the copper pick between your thumb and index finger. You tilt your head and gently insert the scoop, slowly, carefully, with all the grace of a man attempting not to sneeze. With metal in his head, the sensation is oddly satisfying. A quiet scrape, a soft tickle, a small victory. You repeat on the other side, taking your time. Historians still debate how widespread ear hygiene was among Song Dynasty scholars. Some claim it was primarily for monks and courtiers. Others point to personal diaries, referencing the morning oral discipline as a regular part of a literate man's routine. You believe it was common, or at least strongly encouraged, in libraries, where whispers echoed like accusations. Next comes the nose spoon. It is not glamorous. It is not comfortable. It is, however, efficient. You tilt your head again and press the slender handle into one nostril. Carefully, you scrape along the inside rim, drawing out a bit of yesterday's dust, and maybe the lingering scent of pickled ginger. You switch sides. Repeat. Your eyes water slightly. You blink them clear. You exhale it Slowly. There. Inner clarity. Achieved. You wipe the spoon on a fresh cloth and set it aside. Hands steady. Breath calm. You feel lighter now, as if the wind could travel more efficiently through your sinuses. You imagine Confucius watching and nodding in approval, probably while backing away politely. You lean toward your bronze mirror, squinting at your reflection. Your eyebrows have decided to stage a quiet rebellion. One side rises higher than the other. Several rogue hairs stick out at odd angles. You reach for the tweezers. Pinch. Pluck. Pause. Pinch. Pluck. Ponder. It's not about vanity. It's about presentation. In the Song Dynasty, eyebrows were considered indicators of temperament. Too bushy? Uncontrolled thoughts. Too thin? Questionable integrity. When accidentally shaved off? Possible poetry student. You shape them carefully, neither sharp nor faint, just enough to look like someone who contemplates metaphors without weeping openly. Halfway through, you hear the soft creak of a cart outside, likely the noodle vendor, arriving just late enough to miss breakfast, but early enough to smell delicious. Your stomach gurgles. In betrayal, you ignore it and continue grooming. After the final pluck, you lean back and inspect the results. Acceptable, thoughtful, slightly apologetic. You dip a clean cloth in cool water and wipe your face once more, brushing away any loose hairs. Then, you roll your grooming tools back into their linen case, securing it with a loop of red thread. There's a deep comfort in these tiny rituals. You haven't spoken aloud in over an hour, and yet you've communicated with the world. I am clean. I am capable. I do not have nose moss. You rise slowly, knees cracking again. Your robe shifts softly around your legs. You cross the room and place the toolkit back on its shelf, nestled between a folded scarf and your scroll. On proper seated posture, you glance at the incense pot on the far side of the room. It's time. You light a small coil of mosquito-repelling herbs, wormwood, dried citrus peel, and something unidentifiable that smells like licorice. An old monk. The smoke curls into the air, graceful and faintly menacing. You wave it toward your sleeves and collar, letting the scent cling, just enough to imply you care about pests, but not enough to smell like pest repellent. You step back into the middle of the room, surrounded by light, smoke, and the lingering crispness of morning. Your ears are clear. Your nose is presentable. Your eyebrows curve gently, neither threatening nor bland. Somewhere in the courtyard, Lianu, the elderly calligraphy teacher, sneezes once and says, "Blessings," to no one in particular. You take it as your cue. It's time to clean your inkstone. You move toward your writing desk with the reverence of a man approaching sacred ground, and in a way, you are. The desk is modest, tucked beneath the window, where morning light now angles gently across the surface. Your inkstone waits there, like an old friend who's seen things, mostly smudged things. It's time to clean it. You kneel before the desk and reach for your tools. A soft bristled brush made from goat hair, a shallow bowl of rainwater you collected 2 days ago, and a scrap of silk cloth, faded from overuse. This is not a quick task. This is a quiet ritual, a meditation, a conversation between water, stone, and history. First, you lift the inkstone itself, a smooth rectangle of dark slate, with a shallow well carved into one end, and a grinding channel, etched like a tiny riverbed. The surface still bears the dried remains of yesterday's characters, mostly fragments of moon, wood, and sorrow. You blink slowly. It was a melancholy poem. You pour a few drops of the rainwater into the inkstone's basin and wait as it pools slowly into the crevices. The smell is faintly mineral, cool and pure, with none of the well's metallic bitterness. This water, you believe, makes the best ink. Or maybe you just enjoy believing that. Historians still argue whether rainwater was genuinely prized for ink making, or if it became popular simply because it was free. Some records suggest ink masters swore by it, claiming well water created inconsistent texture. Others claim it was poetic nonsense. You, as usual, live somewhere in the middle. Practical enough to fetch it. Philosophical enough to assign it meaning. You take the goat hair brush and begin scrubbing gently across the surface. The water turns cloudy immediately. Black swirls, spreading like midnight clouds across a dawn sky. You move in slow circles, rinsing away ink residue, loose dust, and the dried frustration of yesterday's third draft. You tip the stone and let the dirty water drain onto a waste cloth. Then rinse. Then repeat. Each swirl becomes smoother, each moment quieter. Once the inkstone is clean, you dry it gently with the silk cloth. Dabbing, not rubbing. The surface gleams again, polished, dark, and ready to absorb a new day's words. You run your fingers across the stone's cool surface and feel the faint indentations from years of use. It's like touching memory. Now, the brush stand. It sits to the right of the inkstone, a curved wooden frame, holding 3 brushes, suspended by thread. One is thick, for titles. One thin, for commentary. One somewhere in between, for letters. In moments of emotional indecision, you lower each brush gently and check the bristles. Yesterday's ink has dried on the middle one. A disgrace. You rinse it in the rainwater bowl, swishing gently, watching the bristles unfurl like waking feathers. Then you shape the tip again, between your fingers. Firm, pointed, ready to compose at least 5 good lines. Before panic sets in, you wipe the handle clean with the silk cloth and return it to the rack. Then the next brush, then the next. The whole process takes maybe 15 minutes, but time feels different here. Elongated, softened, stretched, like a well-pulled noodle. You finish with a gentle sweep of your sleeve across the desk surface, collecting any remaining dust or lint. Then you pause, gaze at your tools, inhale deeply, inkstone, spotless, brushes, aligned, desk, gleaming. You, one step closer to human. Outside, someone in the next courtyard drops a water bucket. The splash echoes, followed by a muffled curse. In Suzhou dialect, you smile. Even perfect mornings have imperfections. Before rising, you adjust the scroll shelf that leans awkwardly beside the desk. It's top-scrolled. The principles of stillness and motion is beginning to curl at the edges. Annoyed by humidity, you tap it gently, back into place. And then, you notice it. Dust, a fine layer, has settled on the upper edge of the shelf. Like an insult in powdered form. It wasn't there yesterday. Or maybe it was. And you were in denial. You fetch a silk cleaning cloth from the supply box, stand on your toes, and begin wiping the scroll rack. With slow, ceremonial strokes, the dust lifts away, like fog from a rice paddy. You wipe the top, then the sides, then the delicate lacquer trim, carved with cloud motifs. Each pass reveals more of the wood's deep brown shine, its surface reflecting faint hints of your clean robe and increasingly self-satisfied expression. You move to the lower shelves, brushing away fragments of scroll casing, stray calligraphy fibers, and one suspicious sesame seed. The scrolls themselves are next. You touch each one lightly, checking the cases, adjusting the labels, straightening the tassels. Some have handwritten titles, like poems for sad days. Others are more utilitarian. Rice storage ledgers, revised edition. You don't rush. This part isn't just hygiene. It's emotional. You lift one scroll and pause, remembering how it once fell open to a passage about plum blossoms and death. You return it gently, careful to align it just so. Once everything is dusted, organized, and back in symmetrical bliss, you exhale slowly, like a man who just tamed chaos. With a square of embroidered silk, you sit back on your mat, pick up your sleeve ends, and shake them lightly. Once to the left, once to the right, dustless, regal, ready for society. The brushes gleam beside the stone. The scrolls sit like obedient students, waiting for recitation. Now, only one thing remains unclear. Why is your right eye twitching? Tea rinse. You rise from your mat, with all the gravity of someone who's just cleaned every square inch of their immediate environment and now suspects their own face is the last chaotic frontier. The twitch in your right eye isn't just fatigue. It's a gentle reminder from your body that ink dust, lantern smoke, and existential dread aren't great for ocular health. Time for the tea rinse. You pad over to the side shelf, where your tea washing kit sits, wrapped neatly in a blue cotton cloth. You unfold it slowly. Inside, 2 shallow porcelain bowls, a bundle of soft gauze strips, and a tightly sealed jar labeled, in elegant brushwork, chrysanthemum and wolfberry, a purifying grade. You untwist the lid and breathe in the scent. Dry florals with a hint of licorice. Clean, medicinal, a little like your grandmother's opinionated advice. In powdered form, you scoop a pinch of the herbs into a small kettle and pour in hot water from the brazier near your desk. Steam rises immediately, swirling upward, carrying the faint perfume of dried petals and wellness. Historians still debate whether rinses in the song Dynasty were a widespread practice or just a quirk of scholar officials with too much time and too little sleep. Some say it was tied to Buddhist clarity. Others say it was the only thing standing between a librarian and total visual collapse. You believe in both explanations. And in tea, you let the infusion steep as you prepare the gauze strips. Clean, folded into tidy fans, each no wider than 2 fingers. You check the temperature with the inside of your wrist. Just right. Warm enough to soothe, not enough to scald. You dip 1 strip, squeeze it lightly, and lean your head back. The cloth rests gently across your closed eyes, releasing warmth and fragrance. The sensation is immediate. Relief, softness, the quiet whisper of, you didn't mess up the scroll shelf after all. You sit like this for a minute, maybe 2. The world narrows to floral warmth and the tickle of steam brushing your cheekbones. Your shoulders drop slightly. You're not asleep, but your thoughts are starting to think about naps. You switch to a fresh strip and repeat the process, this time humming quietly to yourself, a tune with no words, just a memory of a marketplace flute and someone shouting about eel buns. When both eyes have been rinsed, you pat your face dry with a corner of the blue cloth and glance at your reflection. The twitch has stopped. Your gaze is calm again, softened around the edges, like a scholar who's memorized 1 too many poems about longing. You cap the tea jar, fold the cloth, and return everything to the shelf. It sits beside a scroll titled The Inward Light of the Quiet Gaze, which feels both appropriate and mildly sarcastic. You glance toward the doorway. Sunlight has shifted across the threshold, warming the stones into golden panels. The sound of someone washing vegetables in a nearby basin echoes faintly. Splash, splash, scrape. The day is settling into its rhythm. You reach beneath your desk for a shallow wooden tray. Inside, fresh armpit leaves. These are not ordinary leaves. They're fragrant, broad, slightly fuzzy, carefully selected for their ability to wick moisture, suppress odor, and perhaps most importantly, make you feel marginally less swampy. In the underarm department, you select 2. Press them gently between your palms and slide them beneath your robe, nestling them under each arm. With practiced ease, the sensation is oddly comforting, cool, slightly tingly, like a forest whispering. You're doing fine. You exhale again. Somewhere in the next room, a student trips and knocks over something ceramic. There's a pause, then a muttered apology, then silence. You reach for your scent pouch, small, embroidered, filled with dried petals, cinnamon bark, and a shred of dried orange peel. You fasten it discreetly inside your inner sleeve, where it will release its aroma slowly. Throughout the day, your robe rustles faintly as you move, smelling now of sandalwood, osmanthus, and the gentle suggestion of competence. You open the small lattice window beside your desk and let a breeze slip through. The air lifts the gauze curtains and flutters your scroll edges. You let it. For a moment, you just breathe. You've brushed your teeth, combed your hair, cleaned your ears, your nose, your brushes, rinsed your robe, steamed your face, leafed your armpits. The only thing you haven't done is panic. but give it time, because in exactly half an hour, you're expected to appear at the public bathhouse, where your efforts at dignity will be immediately tested by wet floors, communal scrubbing, and a bath attendant who insists on singing while exfoliating strangers. You can't delay it any longer. You gather your bathhouse bundle: soap beans, a change of underrobes, a fresh towel that is roughly the size of a napkin, and prepare yourself for social interaction at its moistest. Bathhouse time. You exit your quarters with the solemnity of a man who knows you will soon be very clean and also very seen. The bundle under your arm is neatly tied with a sash. Inside, your soap beans, a slightly too small towel, your spare linen underrobe, and a sliver of sandalwood soap, gifted by a distant cousin who believes strongly in aromatic superiority. The street between you and the bathhouse is not long, but it holds hazards. Spilled rice water, elderly men airing philosophical grievances, and one very determined chicken who seems to regard pedestrians as ideological threats. You sidestep her with practiced grace. The bathhouse entrance is shaded by a deep awning. Beneath it hang wooden plaques, carved with characters like Harmony, Clean Spirit, Please Don't Sit Too Long. You nod respectfully at the keeper, an old man with exactly 3 visible teeth and a scroll tucked behind his ear. He grunts in approval and waves you through. Inside, steam, a wall of it, moist, fragrant, and completely indifferent to your hairstyle. You duck your head slightly and step into the main changing room, where the air is warm and filled with the soft rustle of robes being folded, slippers shuffling, and the occasional polite cough meant to cover an accidental burp. You choose a corner bench and begin to undress with careful dignity. Outer robe folded, sash rolled, undergarments discreetly shuffled into a bundle. You tuck your belongings into one of the cubbyholes carved into the wall, each labeled with calligraphy that implies deep moral value. Restraint, gentle thought, second towel, clad now in your washing cloth, a modest wrap that covers just enough to avoid scandal. You step into the inner chamber, more steam, and the smell of heated wood, damp stone, and somehow radishes. The room is busy, but quiet. Other bathers murmur greetings, or nod in passing, heads bowed slightly, in that unspoken bathhouse understanding. We are equals here, equally slippery, equally naked, equally trying not to make eye contact. You find an unoccupied stool beside a cedar tub. The water is clear, gently rippling, with a faint scent of wormwood and orange peel. You reach for the dipper and begin your pre-scrub rinse, ladling warm water over your shoulders, chest, arms. The first splash steals your breath, not from cold, but from the heat, soaking deep into muscles that didn't realize they were tense. You exhale audibly, a sound halfway between relief and low-level enlightenment. You begin scrubbing. Your soap beans, soaked for a few minutes in a small clay bowl, have softened into a pulp that foams slightly under your hands. You rub it over your skin in firm, slow circles. Neck, shoulders, back of the neck. Ah yes, that spot that always itches. After shelving scrolls, someone nearby clears their throat and begins a quiet conversation about bamboo scaffolding. You nod politely without turning. The code of the bathhouse: talk softly, don't stare, never correct someone's foot washing technique unless they ask. You scrub your chest and stomach, careful not to let the soap drip onto your neighbor's mat. You lift one leg, then the other, and clean your feet again, not because they're dirty, but because the bathhouse is sacred, and one must never track the outer world into the inner basin. Now comes the back. This is where strangers become temporary allies. You turn slightly, holding your scrubbing cloth behind you, like an invitation. Sure enough, a man 2 stools over glances your way, raises an eyebrow, and nods, the universal gesture of, "Would you like me to scour your spine?" You bow slightly and lean forward. He takes the cloth and gets to work with all the force of someone who's been waiting for this moment all day. He scrubs vertically, then horizontally, then some sort of diagonal fury that makes you question your past life decisions. You stifle a grunt. This is not pampering. This is penance. He finishes, with a final swat between the shoulder blades, then returns the cloth with a bow. You return the favor. Social debt repaid. Historians still argue whether bathhouse backscrubbing was a standard courtesy or a form of low-level social maneuvering. Some say it indicated friendship or political alliance. Others believe it was just the fastest route to personal cleanliness. You believe in its necessity and also in moisturizing afterward. You rinse again. The soap slides off. Like forgotten anxiety, your skin feels warmer, lighter, almost suspiciously, free of ink smudges. You step carefully toward the soaking pool, a rectangular basin, tiled in green stone, fed by a slow trickle of hot spring water. You lower yourself in, inch by inch, until your shoulders sink just below the surface. You exhale again. The steam wraps around you like a patient ant. Time softens. Thoughts drift. The man across from you mutters something about plum trees blooming early this year. Someone agrees. A third bather hums a four-note tune that might be a lullaby or a noodle vendor's chant. Slowed by steam, you close your eyes. Your legs float slightly. Your ears fill with water-muffled conversation and the rhythmic drip of condensation falling from the ceiling beams. You are suspended now, between scrolls, between duties, between thoughts. A librarian, in liminal space, warm, clean, blank as a fresh page. You linger in the warm water, like a dumpling forgotten by a very considerate chef. Soft, buoyant, completely at peace. The heat has reached your bones now, tugging the tension from your spine and coiling it into steam that drifts lazily across the bathhouse beams. A few bathers quietly excuse themselves, stepping out of the pool with practiced grace, reaching for their drying cloths. You remain. Time here has melted slightly. You no longer care how long you've soaked, only that your toes are beginning to feel philosophical. Eventually, you rise. Not abruptly. That would be rude to the water. You ease yourself up, knees complaining, just enough to remind you of your age, or at least, the number of scrolls you've crouched beside this week. Water slips down your body in slow rivulets, pooling at your ankles, before returning to the pool like a silent goodbye. You retrieve your drying cloth, technically a towel, but it behaves more like a large handkerchief, with dreams of grandeur. It's thin, rough, slightly damp before you even begin, but you've known it long enough to love its flaws. You start with your arms, patting rather than rubbing, lest you undo all the work of the soap beans and that aggressive back-scrubbing stranger who now knows you better than your second cousin. Your skin glows faintly from the bath, clean, pink at the edges, fragrant with steam and the ghost of wormwood. You wrap the towel around your waist and pad toward the changing chamber. Here, the ritual resumes in reverse. You retrieve your underrobe first, folding it open like a letter. From your pre-bath self, you step in carefully, ensuring the hem doesn't drag on the damp tile, and smooth the fabric down with practiced grace. Then the inner robe, soft, linen, slightly stiffer from sun-drying, but familiar as a favorite poem. You slip it over your shoulders, adjust the collar, fasten the inner ties. Your sash is next, a wide, dusty rose band with subtle embroidery, waves, clouds, or possibly fried dumplings, depending on your hunger level. You tie it tightly enough to suggest discipline, but loose enough to allow for post-bath breathing. You glance around. No mirror, but you don't need one. You feel like someone whose feet no longer smell like ink storage, and that's enough. Nearby, two men are engaged in a low-stakes debate over plum wine versus rice wine. As a post-bath beverage, you mentally side with plum, more poetic. Also, fewer people attempt haiku. After drinking it, you shake out your towel once, then fold it neatly and place it atop your bath bundle. It's still warm. You savor that. Warm cloth, clean skin, dry feet. Before stepping outside, you return to the basin and pour one last ladle of warm water over your hands and face. A soft farewell gesture, like closing a scroll, without smudging the ink. The keeper nods at you as you exit. You return the gesture. Posture tall, sleeves crisp, inner world rehydrated. Back on the street, the air is different. Cooler, yes, but also more welcoming. Your skin tingles slightly as it adjusts to open air. The sun has risen fully now, turning tiled rooftops into soft mirrors, casting long, slow shadows. Down the alleyways, you walk with a lightness that only comes after being vigorously exfoliated by a near stranger. As you pass familiar doorways, tea vendors, brush sellers, that one lady who always glares at you for reasons no one understands, you begin mentally assembling the next phase of your day: writing, shelving, possibly dealing with the small beetle infestation behind the northern scroll rack. You wonder if the beetles read poetry. They seem drawn to lie by. You reach your gate and step inside. The courtyard welcomes you with quiet warmth. Your robe barely stirs as you cross the stones. No dust clings to your feet. No sweat prickles your neck. You are, for now, a perfectly balanced being. Inside, your quarters smell faintly of chrysanthemum tea, dried ink, and the last whisper of the mosquito coil from earlier. You set down your bath bundle, fold your towel over the window bar to dry, and take a moment to stretch. Your joints pop again, this time less like bamboo, more like thank you notes. You refill your rainwater bowl, this time with the clear contents of your bathhouse gourd, still warm, still sweet with herbs. You sip once, then again. Hydration and poetry begin in the same place. Then comes the hair, still damp, still fragrant. You reach for your horn comb and begin the post-bath ritual. Less brutal than the morning untangling, more of a gentle coaxing. The strands glide under the comb, like waves returning to shore. You apply a few drops of plum kernel oil to your palms and smooth them through your hair, watching the sheen return. Not shiny, just composed. You take your time, retwisting your top knot. It deserves ceremony. This time, the ribbon is deep green, a subtle contrast to your sash. You tie it with one loop and a firm knot. Perfect. You glance around. Everything is where it should be. The bathhouse has worked its magic. You are clean, balanced, unhurried, and ready to deal with the absolute disaster. That is, your underrobe folding shelf. The shelf in question, your underrobe folding shelf, glares at you the moment you look at it. Not literally, of course, but if a stack of linen could express disappointment, this one's doing it. The folds are crooked. One garment has escaped entirely, drooping halfway out like it's trying to flee accountability. Another is upside down, exposing a seam you haven't mended since before last summer's fire drill scroll inspection. Unacceptable. You exhale slowly, the way one does before plucking a stray eyebrow hair or addressing a mislabeled scroll. In front of a superior, you kneel before the shelf, square your shoulders, and begin the solemn task of robe realignment. First, the outermost piece, a light blue underrobe, you usually reserve for hot weather. It's been crushed between two thicker layers and has formed a wrinkle, shaped suspiciously like the character for Chaos. You smooth it gently, lay it flat across your thigh, and begin folding. Sleeve to center, other sleeve to center. Hem up, fold once, twice. Breathe, press the crease. You've done this so many times. Your fingers move on instinct. Each robe becomes a silent poem, structured, rhythmic, deliberate. There's no room for anxiety when the linen is aligned. Historians still debate whether Song Dynasty scholars folded their garments in ritualistic ways, or if that's just how textile guides were written. Some claim every fold had symbolic meaning. Others suggest it was simply the best way to avoid robe creep. You've never found a scroll that settles the argument, but you fold your sleeves inward anyway, just in case the gods are watching. The second robe is heavier, winter weight, worn only during cold dawns, or in the unheated archive chamber, with older librarians who insist the chill is good for memory. You check for moth holes. None. You fold it with extra care, adding a lavender sachet as protection against future infestation, and maybe the melancholy that tends to accompany archive hours. You continue through the pile. Each robe reveals itself, like a slightly judgmental acquaintance, some stiff with starch, others soft with age, a few frayed at the edges, where elbows and hope tend to wear out first. Then, you come to a robe you don't remember. It's light gray, faintly patterned with cranes in flight, tucked neatly in the back like a secret. You unfold it and pause. The fabric still smells of plum blossoms and dry wind. You think it may have belonged to your uncle, or perhaps it was yours from that brief period When you try to dress like someone who writes essays on clouds, you hesitate, then fold it carefully, reverently. Some garments aren't just cloth. They're memories stitched shut. Once all robes are folded and stacked, you pause to admire the shelf. The linen rests in perfect rows, sleeves nestled against seams, colors shifting like gentle brushstrokes. Balance has been restored. You wipe the edge of the shelf with a clean cloth and feel something unclench in your spine. To reward yourself, you prepare a cup of tea. It's not ceremonial. No guests are here. No incense. Just you, a clay pot, and a scoop of roasted barley leaves that smell like warm earth, and the beginning of a scroll. You pour the water, let it steep, and sit quietly while the aroma fills the room. It tastes faintly nutty, a little smoky, and very much like what a librarian drinks. After sorting fabric by existential category, you sip slowly, eyes half-lidded. Outside, the breeze shifts. You hear bamboo rustle faintly, and the clatter of someone dropping a scroll tube. 2 doors down, you glance at your writing desk. Your brushes are clean. Your inkstone shines. The scrolls are aligned. And yet, you're not ready to write. Not yet. Instead, you stand, walk toward the door, and step into the courtyard again. The light is perfect now, mid-morning soft, diffused by clouds. You stretch, arms over your head, sleeves flapping gently, like banners of peace. And then, you sit down in the sun, right there, on the stone bench, in your clean robe, with your tea still warm. You close your eyes. You breathe. You let your thoughts wander. Somewhere nearby, a boy is reciting multiplication tables, with the panic of someone whose teacher owns a bamboo pointer. You smile. You think, briefly, about that robe with the cranes, about the uncle who might have owned it, or maybe the you that did. You think about how good your feet feel, about the scrolls still waiting to be copied, about whether the Beatles behind shelf 7 deserve names. You don't fall asleep, but you don't not drift a little. And when the breeze grows, just a bit cooler, and your tea cools with it, you stand, refreshed again. There's one final grooming ritual to tend to, one you've avoided all morning, despite the quiet itch and the subtle whisper of social expectation. It's time to check your scalp for lice. You return to your quarters with the weary dignity of a man about to go searching through his own hair for intruders. The scalp check is a private affair. It doesn't matter that everyone does it. It doesn't matter that half the poetry club spent last week quietly scratching during lectures on the Tao of duck migration. The goal isn't just cleanliness. It's deniability. No one wants to be that librarian who brought lies from a bathhouse bench into the archive. You sit cross-legged near the window, where the light is good, but not punishing, and unwrap your inspection kit. It's small, a narrow-toothed horn comb, a square of white linen for detection, and a jar of camphor balm, just in case. You hope it won't come to that. The smell alone could exile you from polite society. You undo your top knot slowly, unwrapping the silk ribbon, letting your hair spill over your shoulders. It's still faintly oiled from earlier, glossy, well-behaved. From a distance, it looks immaculate, but your fingers know better. They begin the search. You start at the crown. Part. Swipe. Check. Part. Swipe. Check. The linen square waits in your lap, eager to catch any stowaways. It remains blessedly empty. Historians still argue whether lice were considered a source of shame or just a nuisance in daily song life. Records show both. Courtiers shaving their heads entirely, and poets casually referring to itchy hours beneath plum trees, as if it were just another flavor of inspiration. You suspect everyone had lice at least once, but not everyone wrote poems about it. You keep combing, behind the ears, along the nape. The hair here is softer, more sensitive. You pause to scratch, not out of necessity, just out of suggestion. The power of suggestion is strong when dealing with hypothetical parasites. Still nothing. You lean forward slightly and shake your hair out over the linen square. A single sesame seed falls. You stare at it. Breakfast? Bathhouse bench. Symbolic omen. You flick it away and continue. Now you're parting your hair into sections, working with the precision of a scroll copier, reviewing colophons. Every strand tells a story, most of them about sleep deprivation. And that time you lean too close to an oil lamp. You reach the final section, top right quadrant, near the hairline, and slow down. This is where they hide, if they're going to. Warm, shady, untouched. Swipe. Pause. Check. Nothing. You exhale and set the comb down gently, like a calligraphy brush after a final stroke. Victory. You smooth your hair back and begin readying your top knot. This time, you choose a ribbon the color of midnight ink. You wrap it twice. Tie it with a firm, graceful knot. Composed. Elegant. Pest-free. You wipe the comb, roll the kit into its pouch, and tuck it back onto the shelf. Right between Songs of Gentle Discomfort and Illustrated Mushrooms of the Southern Provinces. Your scalp feels cool now, kissed by air and triumph. You allow yourself a small smile just as you're about to stand. A soft tap echoes from your door. You rise and answer. It's June, the junior archivist, clutching a scroll, looking mildly panicked. In that way he always does when he's read something he didn't fully understand, but now must explain to someone else. Sorry to bother you, he says, but I found something in the commentary hall, behind the 9th shelf, and it's sticky. You blink. Sticky. He nods. And humming. Slightly. You stare longer than is polite. Then nod. Let me put on my outer robe. You choose your heavier robe. Cream-colored, cloud motifs. Wide enough to suggest authority, without implying delusions of grandeur. You slip it on. Adjust your sash. Check your reflection. Clean. Alert. Absolutely not hosting any scalp-based passengers. Good enough. June waits as you return. You follow him toward the archive, sandals whispering against stone. The hallway smells of old paper and cumin, probably from the lunch stall outside the rear gate. You reach the 9th shelf. June gestures. You lean in. There it is. A scroll. Unlabeled, slightly open, and indeed, lightly sticky. You reach for it with your sleeve. Gingerly. There's a hum. You tilt your head. It's a beehive. A small one, lodged between the back wall and the scroll casing. You and June stare in perfect silence. Should I alert the head archivist? June whispers. You shake your head. Not yet. We'll say it's part of the natural sciences collection. He exhales. Smart. You both back away slowly. There's a time for scrolls, a time for scalp inspections, and a time for diplomacy with bees. And right now, you're just glad your hair is clean enough not to attract any. You and June retreat from the humming scroll with the solemnity of librarians who've just encountered divine intervention in the form of insects. Neither of you speaks until you've rounded the corner into the adjacent corridor, where the walls smell faintly of cedar and old ink, rather than honey and danger. I'll make a note of it, June says, clutching his scroll like it might protect him from bees. In the non-urgent incidents log, you nod. Label it under unexpected archives, and maybe light a stick of sandalwood near that shelf. Gently, not dramatically. He nods, bows awkwardly, and scurries away, probably to copy down the exact wording of the humming and poetic meter. You turn back toward your quarters, mentally noting a future task. Find out if bees are omens for scholarly success, or scroll-related curses. There's probably a scroll for that somewhere, possibly in the sticky section. Inside, you close the door softly. Remove your outer robe and fold it carefully over the screen, because now comes one of the most delicate rituals of the day. Not dangerous, but exacting. The scalp-rimmed shave. This isn't a monk's head shave. You're not surrendering your top knot to the way. This is maintenance. Tidying the hairline, ensuring dignity, preventing whispers like the librarian with the creeping neck fuss. You retrieve your shaving kit. Inside, a small bronze razor, curved like a whisper, a bowl of warm water with floating petals for morale, a bottle of rice oil, and a linen square embroidered with a character that means either grace or don't sneeze. You begin by dabbing the back of your neck with warm water, softening the skin, preparing the battlefield. You tilt your head and catch your reflection in the polished copper mirror. Just enough light to see, not enough to be blinded by your own cheekbones. You hold the razor at a precise angle. The first stroke is always the most important, not the hardest, just the one that sets the tone. You glide the blade just under the edge of your hair, clearing away the fine stray hairs that sneak down your nape like gossip. The blade whispers with every pass. You wipe it clean on the cloth. Check for evenness. Breathe through your nose. There's something meditative about it, a kind of practiced stillness between control and surrender. You hold your breath through the temples. Raise your elbow. Steady your wrist. You draw the blade in short, downward arcs, shaping the edge to mirror the curve of your brow. Deliberate, precise, measured like verse. Historians still debate whether this kind of grooming was practical or aesthetic. Some say court fashion inspired it. Others claim it kept sweat from running into scroll margins. You believe in both. And you believe in scroll margins. Once finished, you rinse again and pat your skin dry with the linen square. You warm a few drops of rice oil between your palms and press it gently to the newly shaven edge. It smells like a rice cake. At its prime, your neck feels cleaner, lighter, like you've rewritten the ending to a chapter that always felt slightly off. You smooth your top knot again, tie your sash with intention. You glance into the mirror. Lines clean, jaw uninterrupted, fuzz banished. You nod to yourself. Then, feeling slightly theatrical, you strike a pose. Arms folded, one brow raised, scroll tucked beneath your non-writing arm. You look like someone who would absolutely win a minor academic debate about whether poetry should be footnoted. You hold the pose for 2 seconds, then chuckle softly, and return to being someone who folds ropes and talks to tea. You glance at the bowl. The petals have wilted slightly. They curl inward like they're relieved it's over too. You carry the bowl to the garden pot. Pour it out with reverence. Those herbs will one day soak your feet. You return the bowl to its place. It's quiet now. The late morning light slices the room into stripes. Somewhere outside, a carpenter hammers slowly, rhythmically, maybe fixing a bench, maybe building a chair for someone who never sits. You sit. The mat is warm from the sun. You fold your sleeves into your lap. Exhale. This morning has been long, but precise and complete. Your scalp is safe. Your scrolls are aligned. Your tools polished. Your confidence firm. But there's one last step, one final detail, as ancient as rice wine and as humbling as vinegar. Your teeth. Again, this time, polishing. You rise once more and move to the corner of your room, where your dental cloth hangs folded, next to the jar of vinegar and the pouch labeled simply, "For when teeth must shine." This is not brushing. You've already done that. This is the polish, the final refinement. For the song Dynasty librarian, whose smile, if reluctantly offered, must reflect the clean conscience of someone who alphabetizes scrolls by subject, not by whim. You unfold the cloth. Slowly. It's a narrow strip of woven cotton, softened by time, but still holding the faint stain of vinegar and salt. You dip it into a small ceramic jar. Rice vinegar, diluted with water, and steeped with 2 cloves, and a sliver of dried citrus peel. Just to take the edge off its wrath, you begin. Front teeth first. Slow, circular motions. The cloth squeaks. A tiny, squealing protest against enamel. A sound that makes the whole room feel like it's holding its breath. The taste? Frankly, awful. Sharp. Sour. Disapproving. But effective. Vinegar, long praised for its purifying properties, cuts through oils, fights bacteria, and bonus, wards off both germs and unwanted conversation. Historians still debate whether this was a common scholar's practice or the eccentric habit of men who recite aloud too often and smile too rarely. You work the cloth across each molar. Gentle, steady, focused. Your eyes water, just a little, not from pain, just the vinegar. You rinse with cool water, spit into your ceramic waste jar, breathe through your nose until the storm passes. You glance in the mirror. Your teeth don't gleam. They don't sparkle like pearls or glow like moonlight, but they are clean, even, respectable, the kind of teeth that belong to someone who recites the classic of filial piety. Before lunch, you pat your lips dry with a corner of your sleeve and recork the vinegar jar with the quiet finality of a man who has just survived something sour. And now, the tongue inspection. Not glamorous, not necessary, but traditional. You lift your mirror, stick out your tongue discreetly. Pale pink. No coating. Acceptable. You make a mental note. Fewer pickled plums this week. Just in case. You fold the cloth into thirds. Roll it. And slide it back into the pouch, beside your comb, and no spoon. The holy trinity of maintenance. Now, you sit. Again. This time, in front of your scroll case. Not to read. Not yet. But to prepare. Because after the scroll alignment and the scalp inspection, in the vinegar ordeal. You must actually write. But first, you do one more thing. You reach for your sleeve. Specifically, for the inner sleeve puff. This is where the ritual becomes theatrical. You grasp the inside seam of your left sleeve and give it a practiced flick, gentle, upward, like shaking out a silk scarf. At a market stall, the fabric swells, catches the light, and settles softly around your wrist, like a halo of linen discipline. Then the right sleeve. Flick, settle, adjust. This is not vanity. This is how a librarian tells the world. My sleeves are ready. Therefore, I am ready. Next comes the sash knot. Yours is plain, cream, with pale blue threading, but tightly woven. Dependable. You untie it, retie it higher, just below the ribs. Fold, pass through, tighten, tuck, smooth the fabric. The knot holds. Historians argue whether sash knots carried hidden meanings. Did asymmetrical bows suggest rebellion? Did triple wraps imply pride? One scroll claims a poorly tied sash could get you denied entry to certain tea shops. You believe in this. Tie your sash with care, and people assume you know where the right scroll is. Without muttering, you stand. The sun has shifted again. Light dances across your robe folds. Your hair catches it, gleaming faintly from its morning oil. By all outward measures, you are immaculate. You exhale. Draw your arms into your sleeves. Bow once to the room. This is the version of you the students will see. This is the version the senior scribes will respect. This is the version the scrolls will trust. And yet, before the ink flows, before the writing begins, before your day is launched into commentary, record-keeping, or silent judgment of someone else's punctuation, you do one final thing. You reach into your scroll case and pull out your scent pillow, because tonight, after all this discipline, there will be sleep, and the scent must be ready. You carry the scent pillow to your sitting mat, cradling it like a miniature moon, no larger than your palm, sewn from indigo-dyed silk, with tiny embroidered stars stitched just along one edge. Not enough to boast, just enough to suggest serenity, without tipping into vanity. The scent still lingers, faint now, but there. Dried lavender, aged sandalwood, a trace of mint leaf, calming, grounding, the kind of sleep that arrives without argument and leaves you upright at dawn. Your robe still folded, your dreams still intact. You set the pillow in your lap and reach for the refill pouch, a blend you've crafted over time, equal parts diligence and low-level obsession. Inside, dried petals, curled citrus peel, ginger root slivers, and one tiny scrap of papyrus that smells, somehow, like comfort. You shake a small amount into your palm, then begin massaging it into the pillow, gently, through the outer fabric. Not too hard, not too fast. You're not waking it. You're coaxing it. With every motion, the fragrance rises, softly, then more confidently. Your eyes begin to soften. Your shoulders, which have spent the morning pretending to be made of stone, finally admit they are human. Historians still argue about scent pillows. Were they a noble indulgence? A scholar's tool? A temple's medicine? You don't care. You use yours for one reason only. Sleep that doesn't argue. You hold the pillow to your face. Inhale. Slowly. The oils are warm now. Their scent, loosened, like ink stirred back into meaning. You breathe in again, and your room begins to feel like the inside of a poem. You set the pillow on your bedding, then pause to smooth the mat where you'll lie later. Not now, but soon. There's one last ritual before rest. Not of cleaning, not of grooming, but of returning. You step to your desk, not to write, not yet, just to be near it. You rest your hand on the scroll shelf. Feel the polish of familiar wood beneath your fingertips. You glance at the brush stand. Still clean, still ready. Outside, the breeze carries the scent of warm earth and late blossoms. The sky has shifted from sharp morning to drowsy midday, soft blue, and shadowed tiles. You sit again, the scent pillow behind you, spine upright, sleeves resting over your knees. You don't speak. You don't write. You just exist, clean, aligned, suspended in the space between labor and rest. The tea shop bell rings 3 times. It's the 3rd hour past sunrise. The owner always rings it late. It's part of his charm. A neighbor calls to her son. A bird lands on your roof. With a soft, confident hop, something falls in the distance. And someone mutters, again. With mild amusement. You listen. You breathe. This is the moment. All the rituals lead to. Not just cleanliness, for its own sake, but for the stillness it leaves behind. The feeling that your space, your tools, your thoughts, and your skin have been arranged with just enough care that nothing creaks inside you anymore. You lean back slightly, weight shifting onto your hands. The scent of your pillow curls upward, like an invitation. Your robe folds softly at your ankles. Your skin still remembers the warmth of the bathhouse. Even your ears, still echoing faintly with the morning's scrubbing, feel like they're listening better now. Your stomach grumbles. Oh, lunch. You stand slowly, carefully, like a man trying not to spill the calm he's gathered all morning. You roll your shoulders once. Give your sash a gentle tug. Still tied. Still perfect. You glance around your room. The linen, the scrolls, the air. All is well. Your reflection, just a ghost now, in the bronze mirror, looks like someone who no longer minds being seen. You step to the door, slide it open. Light rushes in. And now, at last, the world may re-enter, but not without passing through a librarian who smells of sandalwood, vinegar, and quiet victory. The world greets you, not with fanfare, but with the smell of noodles. As you step outside, the scent hits you immediately. Soft wheat, scallion oil, a touch of vinegar that makes you flinch, and a sizzle of garlic that feels just a little too intimate. For mid-morning, you follow your nose to the edge of the courtyard, where the food stall has set up its pots. Steam rising, like lazy scrolls, curling into the air. But you don't rush. Rushing would undo everything you folded into yourself this morning. You walk with the composure of someone who has shaved their scalp rim with poetic precision. And when you arrive, the vendor, a woman, with eyebrows better groomed than your moral compass, gives you a nod. Same as yesterday? You nod back. She begins preparing the bowl with quiet authority. Flat noodles, a scoop of preserved mustard greens, a splash of chili broth, mild, per your weak and dignified request, and a single half tea egg that looks like it's been contemplating life for decades. You carry it back, like a sacred text. Once inside, you place it on your low table, fetch a cloth, lay it beneath the bowl. Just in case of slippage, you don't want to explain to junior scribes why your robe smells like garlic. In literary shame, you eat slowly. The noodles are soft. The broth is warm. The mustard greens have just enough tang to make you blink. Then recover. You chew. You sip. You sigh. Quietly. You eat like a man who's earned this. After the final bite, you clean the bowl with the same reverence you applied to your inkstone. Warm water. Linen cloth. Back on the tray. Silent. Orderly. Now finally, your body and mind are aligned, which means it's time for the afternoon ritual. Less intense than the morning, but no less sacred. You begin with a self-inspection. Robe placement. Sash integrity. Shoulders. Slightly uneven. Unacceptable. You straighten your posture. Reset your feet beneath your body. Check your breath. Neutral. No scallion. Good. Now, the robe smoothing. You stand in the center of the room and brush your hands down the front of your robe. From shoulder to sash. From sash to hem. Not for wrinkles. There are none. But for rhythm. You're reminding the robe who's in charge. You face the mirror. Hair, composed. Sleeves, balanced. Mouth, neutral. Eyes, capable of correcting a junior scholar. With one blink, you are ready to return to the archive. But first, a small detour. You retrieve your personal scroll from the case by your desk. Collected notes on proper posture while sitting cross-legged. A masterpiece. A companion. Also a subtle weight to carry under your arm. So you look appropriately burdened as you pass others on the walkway with scroll in hand. And your scent pillow tucked atop your mat for later. You step out again into the light. The stone beneath your sandals is warm now. The shadows cast by eaves fall in pleasing geometries. Across the path, you pass two junior scribes, arguing about the beetle nest. Behind shelf 9, you don't interrupt. You want to see who figures it out first. As you near the hall, The ink monitor appears, sleeves rolled, carrying a tray of freshly dried paper. He stops when he sees you, frowns slightly, not out of dislike, but because he's been frowning since the fall of the Northern Song and forgot how to stop. Scroll return today? He asks. You nod. Lift your copy of the posture treatise. He eyes the corner of the scroll. Crisp fold. No fraying. Acceptable. That from him is equivalent to a standing ovation. You pass. Inside the main hall. The air is thick, with ink dust, mulberry paper, and the quiet rustle of too many robes, trying to be quiet. All at once, you find your place. Along the western wall, set your scroll before you. Sit, cross-legged, with all the grace of a man who exfoliated his back less than 12 hours ago. The others nod. Briefly, you nod back. Your hands rest on your knees. Your back is straight. And now, you begin the long, slow work of not just reading, but rereading. Not because the text changed, but because you have. Oh, you sit still for a long moment before opening the scroll, not out of hesitation, but out of reverence. The kind of pause you give to the first bite of a long-anticipated meal, or the first word of a poem you know by heart, but still love like it's new. Your thumbs press gently against the lacquered ends, and slowly, you begin to unfurl. The scroll is familiar. Collected notes on proper posture while sitting cross-legged. Yes, but it's also a mirror. It reflects not just the wisdom of old masters, but your own self-discipline, written in ink. The first line reads, "The root of stillness is a stable spine." You nod, automatically, and straighten another half-inch. Your shoulders draw back. Your knees settle. You become less of a man and more of a mountain, contemplating bureaucracy. You read on. The room hums softly around you. Brushes whisper on parchment. A reed pen squeaks. Pushed just a little too hard. Someone sneezes and tries to cough over it. No one looks up. You trace each character with your eyes, letting them anchor your breath. You're not studying. You're aligning. The scroll doesn't ask to be interpreted today. It's just reminding you who you are. After a page or so, you pause, reach into your sleeve, take out a soft cloth. You gently wipe a speck of dust from the scroll's margin, not because it matters, but because it's there. You return to reading. A line jumps out. A crooked shoulder invites chaos in the record. You blink, then glance down. Sure enough, your left shoulder is a little ahead of the right. You shift, breathe in, adjust, exhale. Better. Chaos. Diverted. Historians still argue whether posture manuals were philosophical texts or just cleverly veiled critiques of state officials. Some claim the metaphors were aimed at bureaucratic inefficiency. Others say they were for self-regulation only. You suspect both are true. The Song Dynasty had many layers, like your robes and your grudges. You roll the scroll halfway. Let your fingers rest on the paper. It's warm now. From your hands, lived in. You sit back slightly, still straight, and observe the room. Across from you, a scholar frowns at his inkstone. The brush has betrayed him. There's a splotch on the corner of his ledger. He inspects it, sighs, and then, in a quiet moment of genius, reclassifies the splotch as punctuation. You nod inwardly. That's what training gets you. A little farther down, two junior scribes are whispering over a shared brush, arguing, probably, about stroke order. You decide not to intervene unless they start quoting simplified forms from the tea-house wall. Then, you'll have to give a speech. You refocus. The next passage. Mental posture. The stillness of thought. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and try it. The scroll says, when the mind stands upright, the body follows. When both stand, silence bows. You test this. You quiet your thoughts. You try not to think about beetles behind shelf 9, or the possibility that June labeled the beehive small musical infestation, or the vinegar that still haunts your back molar. You breathe in. You breathe out. Stillness. There. Just for a moment. You return to the scroll. Your eyes trace the final verse. Something about balance. Or soup. It's hard to tell. Your stomach growls. You gently roll the scroll shut. Tap each end twice. A bow to the end of a story. You place it to your right. Sit. Not from obligation now, but because stillness feels earned. Across the hall, The ink monitor stands. He prepares the inspection table, a daily ritual of alignment, moisture, and brush point symmetry. You rise. Slowly, fold your sleeves back into their resting place. You walk to the basin. Wash your hands. The water is cool, slightly scented. From yesterday's citrus peel soak, it lifts the ink dust, the scroll oils, the fragments of noon. From your fingers, you dry them on a clean cloth, folded beside the brush rack. Then you walk calmly toward the table. This moment is more than maintenance. It's performance, a public display of internal alignment. Your robe, your breath, your brush case, all perfectly in place. The ink monitor arrives, ledger in hand. He pauses. Eyes drift over your hair, your sash, your sleeves, your scrolls. He nods. Once. Quiet. Respectful. You have passed. And now, you are free. Free to return home. To light the lamp. To unwrap a scroll. Not for work, but for pleasure. To sip tea. That doesn't need to impress anyone. And tonight, when you lie down, you'll rest your head on that little scent pillow, the one you fluffed with care, and sleep like someone who has trimmed his hairline, polished his teeth, and read a scroll that told him how to sit in balance with the world, and perhaps, just perhaps, dream like someone who never left the library at all. You walk home more slowly than this morning, not because you're tired, but because the day itself has exhaled. The sun sits lower now, brushing everything with gold. Rooftops, tiles, even the curve of your elbow, where your sleeve falls just right. You pass through the outer corridor of the archive, with your hands tucked behind your back, the same way your teacher used to walk, before announcing he'd misplaced the bamboo pointer. Again, outside, the street has quieted. The morning bustle softened to murmurs. Someone's boiling roots over a charcoal stove. You can hear the bubbles. From here, a dog is snoring beneath a vendor's stall. The air smells faintly of pickled vegetables and sweet bean cake. You reach your gate, unlatch it, step into your courtyard. The breeze lifts the curtain at your door, as if it's been waiting for you. You enter your room and breathe deep, slow. You are home. Your first move is simple. Untie your sash. Not fully, just enough to let the robe loosen. You sit on your mat. Set your personal scroll beside you. You won't read it yet. Right now, you need tea. You retrieve your kettle. Pour warm water over roasted barley leaves. The scent rises. Earthy, nutty, a little smoky. You hold the cup to your face for just a moment, then sip. It is not perfect. It is better. It tastes like a quiet hour. Outside the window, the sky shifts from gold to something softer, the color of a well-worn page. It's almost time to begin your evening hygiene, not because you're dirty, but because there's still one more layer to remove from the day. You set the tea aside, step toward the bedding mat. At its corner waits the scent pillow, plump, content, as if it's been meditating in your absence. You pick it up, press it gently to your chest, then place it neatly at the head of your mat. You stretch your legs forward, flex your toes. They feel light, still faintly perfumed. For morning, a testament to your pacing, into that second rinse. Now comes the robe fold. You rise slowly, untie the sash completely, hang it on its peg. Smooth, no creases. You remove the outer robe, fold it in thirds. Shoulder to center, other shoulder to center. Hem up, fold, fold again. Place it beside the mat. Then the underrobe. Same care, same rhythm. Each layer you remove feels like a page being turned away from posture, away from scrutiny, towards something quieter. Now, your sleeping robe, soft, worn, slightly faded. The hem is uneven, in a way only you notice. And only when you're feeling philosophical, you let the sash hang loose. The ends dangle like thoughts that don't need answering. You move to the wash basin, dip the cloth into the warm water you prepared earlier. You wipe your face, slowly, deliberately, forehead, cheeks, nose, around the ears. You pause. The cloth draped across your face, like a soft curtain. Then lower it. Rinse. Pat dry. You glance at your mirror, not for vanity, just to see the person who will be lying down soon. He looks fine, slightly puffy around the eyes. But that's the tea's fault, or the scrolls. You sit, one more time, before sleep. One final ritual. You open your scroll case, not to read anything complicated, just a short piece, a paragraph, a line. You select a poem, a friend's hand, a simple verse, about clouds, over mountains. You unfold it slowly, read it twice. You don't think hard. You just let the images drift across your mind. Mountains, clouds, the space between. You fold the poem again, slip it back into its case. Exhale. Now comes the best part. You lie back. Adjust the scent pillow beneath your head. Lavender and mint. Rise gently. You tuck your hands into your sleeves and close your eyes. The room is still. You're breathing. Even outside, a bird calls. Once, the wind whispers through bamboo. And you're already somewhere. Between cloud and ink, paper and breath. Between the day you lived and the dream that's waiting. You lie still, limbs settled into familiar positions. On the mat, the scent pillow cradles the base of your skull, like a soft, thoughtful guardian. The room is dim now. No lanterns lit, just the natural fade of day into evening, like the last line of a scroll, written with care, but no rush. The air has cooled, but only slightly, enough that your sleeping robe feels just right, neither heavy nor insubstantial. The silk along your collar brushes your neck with the softness of a cat that knows exactly how close it can get before becoming impolite. You close your eyes, but you're not quite asleep. Not yet. Your mind wanders, not urgently, not busily, just drifting through faint memories, gentle curiosities. You think about tomorrow, a list of small things, checking the catalog of misplaced scrolls, reviewing the new shipment of ink sticks, and, if the gods are kind, relabeling that shelf that houses both political treatises and duck recipes. You make a mental note to suggest reorganization, then erase it. You'll suggest it after tea, or not at all. You roll gently onto your side. Your sleeves fold like clouds around your arms. Your nose brushes the scent pillow again. It smells like someone who has never spilled ink on a robe, someone aspirational. Outside, footsteps pass slowly beyond your gate. A soft conversation, a low laugh, nothing urgent, just the neighborhood settling into itself. You shift again, this time onto your back. Your fingers rest lightly against your sash, still loosely knotted. You consider undoing it, but decide you'll do it in the moment, just before sleep. That moment hasn't arrived yet. You're still floating from the corner of the room. A tiny creak. Your ink shelf adjusting to temperature. It always does that when the breeze shifts, as if the scrolls themselves are relaxing. Historians still argue whether sleep was considered an art. In the song Dynasty, some say it was merely a pause between virtue and labor. Others suggest sleep was an extension of cultivated habits. That good sleep reflected good living. You find truth in that. Your sleep tonight will be shaped by your routine, your order, your stillness, your cleanliness. You lift one arm, rub your thumb across your eyebrow. The plucked edge still feels odd, but symmetrical. You smile faintly. Balance matters. Your toes stretch once beneath your robe, then curl. You feel the faintest trace of sandalwood powder clinging to your heel. You consider this a victory. The air is very still now, not heavy, just present. You take a deeper breath, one that fills your lungs, moves your ribs gently beneath the fabric. Your whole body expands, then releases, like a wave, fading back into shore. And now you think, not in words, but in impressions. You think of water running over robe cloth, of goose feather toothpicks, wielded like ancient tools, of the moment your comb slid through your hair without meeting a single knot, of the incense coil you lit and forgot, now spent and quiet on its tray, and of the librarian you saw earlier today, holding a scroll in one hand and a sesame bun in the other, trying to explain fiscal records while chewing, a kind of excellence. You inhale, you exhale. The light in the room has dimmed to nothing now. The window frames only darkness. You know, if you sat up, you'd see maybe one star, bold, early, like the beginning of a new line. But you don't sit up. You pull your robe a little closer to your chest, settle your head more firmly on the scent pillow, and feel your body sink just a little deeper into the mat. Outside, the night shifts again, and you are so close now to stillness, to sleep, to nothing needing to be fixed, dusted, or polished, at least until tomorrow. You are neither fully awake nor truly asleep. You hover in that in-between place where thoughts stretch like shadows and dissolve into air. The courtyard sounds have faded, just the rustle of bamboo leaves brushing against each other like secrets too quiet to catch. A breeze sighs through your window, lifts the edge of your robe, cool, light, then disappears without asking anything of you. You roll onto your side. The scent pillow shifts with you. Its fragrance rises in a soft puff. Lavender, clove, a hint of cinnamon bark. It wraps around your senses like a lullaby from the earth. Your hands remain tucked into your sleeves. Your body still warm from tea, from the day's rhythm, from the quiet pride of having folded, trimmed, brushed, and balanced your way into this moment. This kind of comfort builds in layers. Tea first, then scroll dust removed, then vinegar cloth, then a back scrub, then sleep. Your eyes blink once, then they stay closed. For a while, you listen to your own breath. Inhale, exhale, a whisper of silk as your robe shifts against the mat, the creak of distant wood, someone adjusting their bedding in another building, and then the temple bell chimes once, just once, marking the hour. You are not required anywhere now. No shelves to realign, no scrolls to unroll, no eyebrows to rebalance. Only the hush of nighttime and the sense that everything necessary has already been done. A flicker of thought enters. Tomorrow's guest lecture on rice taxation in the southern provinces. You acknowledge it, then let it float away, like incense smoke, rising, curling once, then vanishing. You shift your foot beneath the robe's hem. The inner stitching brushes your skin, faintly rough, but familiar. You curl your toes. The mat gives a little. The day gives a little. The world offers nothing more than what you've already earned. Your breathing slows. Each inhale, stretching longer. Each exhale, lingering, dragging the tension out with it. Outside your window, a frog begins to sing. Not a song, really, just a note. Repeated, soft, patient, confident. That dawn will come in its own time, and that your job, until then, is simply to rest. You sigh? A real one. Not dramatic, just full. You're still holding the weight of the day deep in your muscles, but it's slipping, not quickly, like scrolls being shelved with care. One, then another, then another. Now come the memories. Not sharp, just drowsy. A bowl of tea, warm in your hands. The feeling of a brush gliding over clean paper. The snap of a scroll case closing properly. The fleeting embarrassment of nearly dozing off during the third hour of ledgers, but hiding it masterfully. You smile, just a little. You remember Lien, the elder scribe, offering you a square of candied lotus root. No words, just the candy, just the nod. Better than praise. You remember not knowing how to tie your sash properly when the knot always slipped or bunched, and now people ask you how to do it. You remember a rainy afternoon spent practicing your signature until it felt like drawing breath. And now, here you are, drawn up, folded neatly, full of plum tea and patience, clean of dust and hesitation. Another breeze enters, quieter. This time, it doesn't touch your skin. It doesn't need to. You're already cool, still, ready. Your eyes remain closed. Your pulse settles. Your ears hear nothing but the hush of night, continuing without you. And beneath all that, something deeper, not silence, structure, the same structure that underlines a well-written line of calligraphy. or a well-lived day, or a night, made sacred by the simple ritual of washing your face, folding your robe, and letting go of worry like it's just another speck of lint on your sleeve. You exhale again, and this time, you don't stop. Your body has softened into the mat. The room has grown so still. You wonder, for a flickering moment, if even the ink in your brushes is asleep. Outside, the moon has finally arrived, full, round, hanging just high enough to cast a pale beam through the lattice of your window. It draws faint patterns on the wooden floor, like the outlines of forgotten constellations. You don't move to look. You feel it on your skin, cool, serene, ancient, older than all the scrolls you've ever handled. Your breath, still slow, matches the rhythm of the night. Inhale, exhale. The muscles behind your eyes slacken. Your jaw rests slightly open, not from tiredness, but because everything is exactly where it should be. The world has been accounted for. Even your robe has settled into place with the weight of acceptance. Far off, a wind chime jingles softly. 5 notes, no melody, just the echo of motion passing through stillness. It doesn't interrupt anything. It becomes part of everything. You wonder if your scroll shelf is dreaming, if the vinegar cloth folded beside your comb feels proud, if the incense ash that curled over your sleeve this morning still lingers in the air like a tiny, fragrant ghost. Your mind offers one last image, a ripple in the stream from this morning, the way the water swirled around your robe's hem as you scrubbed it clean. That moment when light and water and cloth became the same thing. You didn't notice it fully at the time, but now it returns, slow, golden, eternal, and then stillness, not sleep, not yet, but the outer edge of it, where sleep doesn't have to begin, because you're already within its field, drifting forward, without resistance, without fear of forgetting anything, because everything worth remembering has been washed, trimmed, folded, recorded. The room no longer contains furniture, only warmth, only the soft hum of peace in your chest, where the day's duties once lived. You shift once more, not to get comfortable, but because your body is completing its final ritual of the day, the gentle release of vigilance. The pillow beneath your head is now as much scent as substance, lavender, clove, memory. You barely hear the world anymore, not the leaves brushing against the outer wall, not the owl passing overhead like a fleeting shadow, not even the small crackle from your lantern wick burning itself out. It's all still there, but none of it needs you. And perhaps that is the greatest comfort of all, to be unnecessary, to be unburdened, to be simply still just before sleep takes you entirely. One final thought glides across your consciousness like a leaf drifting down the stream. Today was clean, not just your robes, your scalp, your scrolls, but your attention, your effort, your presence. Clean,